Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome into the latest TDR Trade Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. What a weekend it's been, and crazy times to say the least. But hope everybody is doing well as we gear up for the RNC convention that's taking place in Milwaukee this weekend. JD Vance is going to be the vice president selection for Donald Trump. So we're going to dive into that later on in today's podcast during our MSOS Monday segment with Dan Ahrens and what this means for the cannabis space, as well as Ascend Wellness, a big announcement here this morning. I know there are some concerns regarding retail investors regarding their debt. A lot of people like this story, but now with that concerning debt, those questions have been answered. So what's this mean both short and long term for the company? We're going to be bringing on John Hartmann, CEO of Ascend Wellness, in just a moment. But first, let's bring in TDR co-host Anthony Varrell. Good Monday afternoon. Good to see you.
How's it going? Yeah, it was an eventful weekend, to say the least.
Yeah, it's quite
I know there was a lot of things all over the place, but I mean, it was a very serious matter.
Yep.
People died. Luckily,
very sad.
Donald didn't take one in the head, and I mean, yeah, it was a very, very serious matter and eventful weekend going into the RNC.
Yeah, don't even know how to put it into words. But look, there's going to be heightened security underway at Milwaukee as the RNC convention gets underway, which is needless to say. I know Don Murphy, who's a regular on this podcast, will be there all week. So he'll be providing us with some updates, and we hope to have him on the podcast either Wednesday or Friday of this week. We'll also dive into some announcements made in the past hour involving former president and the lead of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, who announced that Senator J.D. Vance out of Ohio, is going to be his selection regarding vice president. So we'll dive into that and what that means in just a moment, as well as some international news in the Czech Republic and some interesting news out of Kentucky pertaining to the medical marijuana market and kind of the slow rollout that has had now that it's been up and running for 15 and a half months. But first, let's begin with big news involving multi-state operator Ascend Wellness, who made an important announcement this morning regarding long-term health of the company, where they announced a refinancing deal that puts the company in a great position over the next 5 years. And to learn more about that, let's welcome in their CEO back to the podcast, John Hartmann. Happy Monday afternoon, sir. How are you?
Great to see you, gentlemen. Doing very well. Thank you.
Yes. I think there's a lot of happy people here to say, based on this morning's announcement, where you announced earlier today, you received commitments for a private placement of $235 million. You were 12.75% senior secured notes, which aren't due until 2029. And the notes are expected to be issued at a price of 94.75% of face value. So, John, I do know there's a lot of investors that like your story. I'd say the one concern that they had was kind of overhanging was the amount of upcoming debt. However, with today's announcement, those questions have now been answered. So what does this say or present to your investors, both short and long-term, knowing that these questions have been answered, like I said?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a terrific statement for the company. And if I could just start with an incredible thank you to the team. There was a large number of team members from Ascend Wellness, as well as our critical advisors, both financial and legal, that helped us get this done. But I would tell you that this is a statement of Ascend's seriousness about taking of how we take our responsibilities. I think I previously shared with you gentlemen on a previous chat that we started this process late last year. So we've been very focused on ensuring we were well out in front of the time that this debt would become current next month. It wasn't the original term due not until next August, but we wanted to stay well ahead of it. It's great that we're in this position to be able to conclude this refinancing well in advance of that, and at terms we feel are terrific compared to others, and in the context of the state of the cannabis financing market currently.
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
And I know that it was so John, it was 235 that was raised. I think 215 is being allocated towards the current debt obligations, which I think were 288 as of the last earnings report. What's the plan with the delta there? I mean, is it to pay it off going into the maturity, as I think it's 60 something million left over at the end?
Yeah, great question. So let me break it down for you briefly. So 275 is the original term loan, and net this bond offering. By the way, it's a bond offering, not a term loan, which is another fantastic step for the company. The bond at 215 net allows us to pay off $235 $215 million of that original 275. And the real nice piece of the flexibility that our lending consortium has provided us is the ability to pay that $60 million off at maturity. And we can do that after the early part of next year with no additional prepayment costs. So if we carry that through to the second or third quarter of next year, we'll do so at the current 9.5% interest versus the new interest rate of 12.75%. So there's a bunch of benefits there for us. It gives us the opportunity and the flexibility to consider the continuing pipeline of M&A activity we have, and together with our board of directors, we will we'll figure out the right time to pay that down. But the structure of the new offering gives us the flexibility to actually refinance that 60 if we needed to for growth reasons or whatever later on. So, the consortium of our lending group has been incredibly flexible with this new offering, and I think it speaks to their confidence in the long-term viability of our business and the long-term strategy that we're deploying.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the bond offering versus a term loan, does that mean that technically it's liquid by nature? Can be traded or listed at a further date, or have any of those been, evaluated?
Yeah, but bonds by their own nature are far more liquid than a term loan, than term loan debt. So yeah, that is absolutely, we do see that as another piece of the flexibility here that over time this will get traction as a tradable and more liquid asset for those that want to trade in our debt. And yeah, that's absolutely, the way that we're looking at that form of the flexibility.
Okay. And then also you brought up the consortium of your lenders. Is there any insight you can give us as to, did they participate in this bond offering? I mean, did they all kind of carry over, or what does that dynamic really look like? Whatever you can share.
Yeah, what we can share, because the deal is expected to close in the next 48 hours, and then there'll be additional information available. But I think what's certainly clear and what's very fair to share is that our largest term loan lenders have carried over, and four of our largest term loan lenders are now have the substantial majority of the new bond debt. So it's been terrific from that regard. We've built on the excellent relationships that we have with them, their clear understanding of our business and the direction of the business. I think they recognize that a former colleague of mine used to say, cannabis is a very stair-steppy business, and there are lots of ups and sometimes there are downs. And I think that this group of lenders have seen the persistence that the company has managed through the last several years, before my time for sure, and even in the last 12 to 14 months of my time, and I think that speaks volumes to their view of the long-term ability of this company to return to our debt holders and to our shareholders, our equity shareholders.
So what do you think they're thinking as far as long-term with this company? If you could share with their audience, like you said, long-term, how is this company now? Obviously on paper, this is a great sign, but long-term, what are you and basically the communication that you want to present to investors on how you see this company basically developing and growing over the next coming years?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, just to have a successful refinancing behind us. This is a big milestone for us. 5-year runway, very favorable terms. I think that gives us a lot of flexibility to think about and not to have to be worried about the next refi, in 1 or 2 years even. I would also say this, so it doesn't get lost kind of in the mix. The way the bond deal is structured is we have a lot of flexibility. If we are in an interest environment, gentlemen, which is about 500 basis points higher than where we were when our original term loan was written in 2021, a few short years ago. So fortunately, we did far better than that. However, the way we're structured is that we have a couple of years where we could make changes if needed. If there was a dramatic change in the interest rate environment and it would make sense for us to refi early, we have a couple of years in the way this is structured to do that without a prepayment penalty. So obviously there's cost of money like the OID and so forth that are factored into that, but that, there is some great flexibility that the consortium has provided us. I think, coming back to the heart of your question, the enhanced flexibility, very competitive terms, great support from our lender group. I think I think the maturity and the stability of knowing we have 5 years really allows us to step back, look at the things that are really critical to our execution right now. And we've talked about them. Densifying our markets, ensuring that we are leveraging the substantial capital investments that have already been made by focusing on lower investment, CapEx light type investments, like our entrance into Maryland, like adding a small grow in Massachusetts, like densifying our primary markets, Illinois, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, with additional owned or partner stores, and really focusing on our cash generation and the ability of the company to continue to grow in that regard. You'll recall at the end of the first quarter, that was our 5th consecutive quarter of positive cash from operations. And, we're very focused on cash generation.
Don't look now, but Illinois surpassed $1 billion sales in the first 6 months. So it's off to a great start. But I know we used a lot of comparisons with Illinois and Ohio, but I know there was a couple of Ohio questions that you wanted to ask as well, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we obviously wanted to tackle the refi, which I think we've definitely shown some light on. I mean, as far as Ohio, is there anything that you can, I guess, share as far as like the pre-approvals, the provisions, as it relates to the 5 retail locations that you guys currently have in Ohio?
Yeah, we are anxiously awaiting, our phone calls and the outreach from the regulatory authorities. We are obviously in touch. We're all lined up. We know that the inspections are due to start. The dispensary inspections are due to start next week. The Ohio State regulatory authorities have added a bunch of new associates. It's our understanding that team is going through some substantial training this week, and then we'll be out hitting dispensaries next week to do the final inspections prior to allowing us to convert over to adult recreational use. So we're very anxious, and we remain very excited about the Ohio market. And what's to come. And so, more to come there as soon as possible.
Now, upon that final inspection, does that deem you able to sell adult use cannabis, or is there like another period of time that has to elapse, or that final inspection day of you're converted?
There are actually Anthony, a number of boxes that need to be checked, which the regulatory authorities will be going through. The 2 most specific that we're currently tracking are the store inspections, and then also interviews with the directors of the organization. Like we understand that we'll actually be getting outreach from the regulators to do a brief interview with directors of the organizations that have applied for the conversion.
Have you figured out like a best and worst case like timeline scenario based off of that? I know you got a grin on your face and don't want to put any timelines on it, but I guess it's out of your hands, right?
It is. It's our teams are ready. Our stores are stocked. Our teams have done a great job of preparing for adult use. We've made some great investments in upgrading the 5 dispensaries in the state. The 3 that are brand new, and 2 that we've retrofitted. We are ready and prepared. We've followed all of the guidelines provided to us. We will anxiously and respectfully wait the regulators' next steps, and we'll be ready to go. Never fast enough, but we understand it's a process.
I hear you, but that's probably the most accurate and smartest answer you could provide at this time, because as much as we all want it to happen overnight, these things do take time. Before I let you go, real quick, what'd you think of the last hour of Donald Trump making JD Vance his selection for vice president?
Look, Ohio is a cannabis-friendly state. We hope that carries through, and we are individuals who respect the process. The tragic situations that happened with the loss of life over the weekend is not a good thing for America. We are people that respect different views, and everyone's entitled to their view, whether others like it or not.
Yes.
So we are hopeful and remain positive about the future of cannabis in the United States. We are very passionate about this business, and we hope that whatever the outcome of the fall election is, that we continue to make progress both on a state level and on a federal level,
Yeah.
so that we can bring consumers what they deserve and really fulfill their rights as consumers to have access to these products.
Yeah. Well, listen, a lot of reviewers making comments right now. Very positive sign, I think, for the company. So congrats, obviously, on the news here this morning. And most importantly, best of luck moving forward, because I know a lot of investors will be watching this story very closely. But appreciate your time, John.
Thank you both for having me. Good to see you both again.
Yeah. Keep in touch, okay?
Will do. Take care.
All right. John Hartmann, CEO. That is a big announcement, to say the least. But yeah.
Well, it's good that it's good that he shined light on the fact that the final inspections could be within the next 1 to 2 weeks, which, I mean, I would kind of extrapolate that out. And I'm not quoting him, but this is my guess. 3 to 4 weeks, we probably see some semblance of adult sales coming out of the state of Ohio.
Alex Solstice. So it's existing lenders providing extension. I think that was a big takeaway too, based on
well, it's not all existing lenders.
Some.
The existing lenders are participating, which you want to see. If they have faith in the asset on a go forward basis, of course they're going to extend their term on these facilities. That's a vote of confidence. That they're willing to extend it out 5 years.
Steve implored, if it's good, why did the stock get beat down today? This is exactly why we're doing what we're doing. This is not about stocks that perform in one day. This is long term. This is what we do every single day. And again, I wish a lot of you investors that log on here realize that this is not something that's going to turn around real quick. Like, this is a big announcement. It's pushed off till 2029. And clearly there's some pretty sophisticated investors that are seeing things as to see the value of where this company is going to grow in the next couple of years. Go ahead.
And I mean, also as a caveat, with all due respect, I mean, 2.5% down is not a beatdown.
Exactly.
By any means. I'm not going to justify the negative price action, but 2.5% is not a beatdown. This is cannabis.
Yes.
They ebb and flow every day.
Noah Hammond, good to see you, my friend. Good update from John. Let's get that comment. Make cannabis great again, as he said a couple of weeks ago. I think it was last week I had him on. I loved it. Yeah. I was actually at an event yesterday in Canada, and I could not believe the amount of vehicles that were pulling up with Trump flags everywhere. So that goes to show the impact that this man has, not only in America, but everywhere right now. So whether you're with them or against them, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. But we'll get into the JD Vance announcement or selection in just a moment with Dan Ahrens. But let's dive into the wire and topic number 2, which involves news specifically over in international news, and more specifically the Czech Republic, where their government is looking to pursue a full commercial adult use cannabis market as part of the, quote, Cannabis Management Act. Anthony, interesting news to say the least. Is this, because I've heard some multiple stories that this was leaked information. So is this indeed accurate? Like, what have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, this is quite accurate. I mean, from what I've heard, they're going to be taking a three pillar approach that'll include home grow as well as self grow, delegation through shared cannabis associations or specialized establishments, and a regulated cannabis market. The biggest thing here is, my biggest takeaway is, this could potentially look like what is in the United States right now as far as adult use goes in certain markets, or what we see in Canada as a full-blown adult use market, unlike what we're seeing in Germany, which is really a medical market on steroids with Pillar 1 and the like. But I mean, this could be the first fully legal market in the EU. I mean, as far as licensing and regulation, they want to roll out a seed to sale tracking system, which will be implemented, which will be great. Possession and decriminalization. It's the full-blown adult use legalization framework. Curaleaf is one of the only companies right now that has leverage to the Czech Republic via a supply agreement. So they're already there. And I mean, this was an announcement they made in March. So, I mean, they positioned themselves about 4 months ago ahead of this, just to add to their Curaleaf International footprint. So, I mean, definitely would like to get more insights maybe from Matt or Boris as per what the Czech market looks like what the expectations should be on the Czech market, and if it really is as valid as this report's showing today.
Spoke to Boris last week. He is brain fried with too many podcasts. He told me in the last couple of weeks. He's going to be back next month once the latest earnings comes out. So we will make sure that we keep in touch with them early part of next year. Duly noted as well that Czech Republic has a population of just under 11 million people, which is about a third or a quarter the size of what Canada is. But I wouldn't get fixated on the population size. If that is the first country within the EU to pass full adult use, it makes you wonder, obviously, where the industry will start to expand and grow within a number of other states, countries, I should say. But big step in the right direction. All right, let's now shift to topic number 3 in Kentucky. It's been roughly around 15 and a half months since the state legalized medical cannabis, which we know was a big story, knowing the background with Mitch McConnell and being in his home state. However, since it's launched and its rollout for the medical market, it's been really slow to attract new green rush of business. So, Anthony, why is that?
I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure actually. They put 48 permits out there with the announcement of this, and there's only been 13 that have been applied for as of today. I looked into this because I figured, what is it? Is it like a low THC rollout, such as like what you're seeing in Georgia, not including smokable flower? No, it's plant material. It's full blown products. This is very interesting. I mean, there could be reasons why. Maybe there's just too much saturation as far as hemp goes, and people don't want to pay the piper and start to compete in the state of Kentucky. I'm actually going to look into this a lot more than I did this morning. Just reading it at face value, because I mean, it's interesting. You would think in a market, you want to be one of the first movers if you think it's going to be a lucrative market. Maybe that's not the case here, or people are just having a delayed response. There's still 15 days left in the application process to submit your applications, and people are just waiting until the 12th hour.
Well, you think when you look at like the state of Kentucky, like there is a lot of dry counties, and like there's just their values and lifestyles within that state. When you think about prescribing medical cannabis, like you look at countries like Germany that are slow to roll that out, there's not a lot of data yet. And this is probably one of the main reasons that I think, forget the accessibility, the whole reason of rescheduling is for more research. But you think, in addition to what you were outlining in regards to hemp, that may have somewhat of a play because of like Mitch McConnell's whole background, the influence he has there, and just really, even though that they did legalize medical cannabis, when you bring up a lot of those factors, that probably has an impact on the growth and the rollout of this.
Yeah, I mean, it could. It's pure speculation, but I mean, the money talks. Like these licenses are not very high barrier to entry licenses. I mean, for instance, for a cultivation license, the fees are only $3,000 to $30,000 as far as the licensing fee goes, up to a $50,000 fee for a tier 1 cultivating license, which apparently they're not even giving out any tier 1 cultivation licenses within this cohort. As far as the proof of funds goes, for a cultivation license, you need $1 million proof of funds. And for a retail license, I think the proof of funds was about 50 grand. If not less. That's nothing. I mean, I've been a part of a couple of applications in Florida. You need a 9-figure proof of funds in order to come into the state. Granted, it's not apples to apples, but showing $1 million versus showing $100 million is a much more daunting task.
You think?
But like I said, I'm going to look into this much more closely. I'd love to actually talk to somebody from Kentucky that might have some insight as per what's going on. And I mean, I'm sure this is going to develop much more than it is right now.
Yep. All right, that concludes Into the Wire here on the TDR Trade Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Anthony Varrell. It's now time for MSO Mondays with Dan Ahrens. Cue the music. Good Monday afternoon. How are you, sir? And happy Monday. I think you're on mute, my friend. He's on mute. Do like that t-shirt, though.
There I am. Hi,
There
guys.
you are.
Sorry about that.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. It's an interesting day. I hope everybody bought the dip first thing in the morning, but it's been an interesting couple of days, to say the least.
Yeah.
Got
interesting week last week. We actually got some green. for
Yeah,
once.
it was an all right week last week on momentum, and again, we've almost forgot about last week with the craziness over the weekend, have we not?
Yeah. Cannot believe what we saw, but I do want to tackle in. Les Spillingus wrote an hour ago that Donald Trump selected his vice president of choice, JD Vance,
Yeah.
and I know from speaking to him back in what was it, April, when we were in Washington. He's 39 years old, former Marine, went to Yale Law School, so I think having friends in higher places definitely helps. But very reputable person. But what are your thoughts on him basically being selected by Trump as his vice president?
I think he's a good one.
You do?
It's nice to see
For the
an
space, you think? Yeah.
well, it's nice to see an old guy go with that youth. Is one thing. He's very respected. He is solidly respected by the conservative side. But yeah, being from Ohio, a cannabis-friendly state now, and he has been on record with saying mostly positive things about cannabis, but
Yeah.
solidly respectable positive. I mean, we're not expecting a someone that's on the left or a Democrat would talk about legalization, but he is in support of medical. Um, he had some questions about the last safer banking and voted against it, but I don't see that as anything major as compared to the statements he's made.
Yeah.
He's supportive of states. But here's something else for everybody to remind themselves of. What exactly does the vice president do most of the time? Yeah.
Zero.
So
Help
it's
get the president votes, and then after that, oh yeah, I remember him
yeah.
4 years
Oh,
later,
no, he
I
right?
might
mean,
get to weigh in a
Kamala.
little bit on policy. It depends on, how much
Yeah.
Trump chooses to use him for that. But no, vice presidents don't do much. This doesn't matter nearly as much as who Trump might select as AG and a number of other cabinet positions. So the market seemed to like it, though.
Yeah.
The cannabis was making a somewhat of a comeback most of the day, and then only in the past hour or so turned a little bit green. And I'll take it
Yeah, of course.
because JD Vance is not a negative for cannabis and not going to do anything to upset Schedule 3. I don't think there's any big negatives here.
Yeah.
I
When I
wonder who he'll be hosting at the White House versus Kamala and Fat Joe. So we should be able to see. Canopy was up 10% on the move,
yeah.
which was
Well, here's the words
hey.
that
I'm not wearing the shirt, but quick plug for YOLO up nicely today. And
oh yeah,
the top performing cannabis fund, I think it's up around 15% year to date, 20 something percent in the past year. The blend of MSOs and international stocks, Canadian stocks, YOLO's leading the way. So quick
by
plug.
the way, speaking of YOLO, I actually had something to go over with that. I'm sure you've seen some of the EU cannabis companies potentially wanting to list on our exchanges.
yeah.
If that were to happen, would that be something that would be siloed into, let's say, a YOLO vehicle, or
Heck
would it
yeah.
warrant its own fund potentially?
Well, it would have to get a lot of significant market. And Anthony, that brings me back. Before we even created YOLO, we had people reaching out to us and talking about creating a cannabis ETF. And I said, no, it won't work. There's not enough liquid stocks. There's not enough tradable stocks. It's too early. And things continued to develop, and we ended up developing our Vice ETF and then the YOLO Cannabis ETF.
Huh.
And MSOs wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that. But the EU, Europe has a long way to go. But yeah, I would love some of those companies to IPO, be able to get listed on NASDAQ and NYSE. And as a reminder to everybody listening, companies like Tilray, Aurora, Canopy, all those companies were able to list on major US exchanges as long as they did not have any THC business in the United States with our federal laws. So yeah,
You know
EU
what,
companies could certainly do it.
Yeah, I'm
Q4
curious
earnings
to see if they list.
Yeah, Q4 and fiscal 24 earnings for Tilray coming up on July the 29th after close. But yes, those are the advantages of being on a senior exchange. I do want to go back to the JD Vance thing, and this is what he basically explained to me when I interviewed him back in April. A number of concerns that included not only by him, but a number of his colleagues that included that the bill was crafted in such a way that he believes would have opened up banking resources for fentanyl traffickers and others, and further said that this has to be done the right way. And in addition, he did say, obviously, you want people in the cannabis space to have access to banking services, but if you do it the wrong way, it'll promote illicit activity, which is what he's trying to prevent. However, if the bill was restructured and the legislation was better, he would support it.
Bingo.
So that is key. So do you believe him, Dan, in this case?
No reason not to. Why would he say those things if he didn't need to, if he is, catering to a conservative base? So no, I would believe that in full. So it's part, educating him up, getting him talked to by all the right people. And, I don't know exactly what intricacies he's talking about in the bill, but that sounds quite fixable. I mean,
we got some interesting comments about him on here. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but investing long-term rights. Vance is descended from hillbilly royalty.
True.
On his father's side. His grandfather's distant cousin, also named Jim Vance, married into the Hatfield family. Their practice of distilling moonshine bodes well for us in ending prohibition. So interesting.
That is true.
I do like the idea too that he's 39 years old. And
I mean, to be honest, I care more about his stance on the Farm Bill and what's going on with hemp.
Walk us through what his stance is on the Farm Bill, if you can, for those that don't know.
I have no idea. That's why I just said I'd love to know his stance on it.
Okay. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, the hemp bill's coming back. Well, discussions about it are coming back up because I can't believe they didn't fix the damn thing yet. And it seems just to be tabled, and some states are trying to police it a little bit and make their own.
That's why I think the most important question to be asking politicians moving forward is, what is their stance on Delta-9 intoxicating hemp products? And how do they fit into the cannabis regulations that are going to be installed here within the next 12 to 18 months? Because if they don't have an answer for that, they need to have an answer for that, because the hemp industry, whether we like it or not, is eroding market share of the traditional cannabis industry.
100%.
And it needs to be addressed.
Yes.
And the only way that it's going to be addressed is if politicians get their shit together and they fix the Farm Bill, and classify D9 intoxicating hemp products in the same way that we classify traditional cannabis products in the state level regulated markets.
Yeah. Well, hey, that brings me back to, Trump overall. So last time I was on with you guys, I said, everybody needs to remember, things are going to get really, really crazy between now and November. There's still a lot to happen. Did I think craziness like this weekend? No, I couldn't imagine. Nobody could. But there's going to be a hell of a lot more craziness. A lot of people think this puts Trump a little bit more firmly in place for winning in November. Probably. But there's still going to be some crazy town stuff. But here's what I want to warn everybody about. A lot of people have been thinking, if we can only get Trump to say something positive about cannabis, just a little bit, that he's, not against it, not against the rescheduling, that he'll, continue. Well, what happened over the weekend just moved cannabis from a pretty low priority for Trump to an extremely low priority for Trump. He has a hell of a lot of other things to talk about. Cannabis isn't going to come up. It's really not. No. Do I think Trump is looking to do anything negative about cannabis? No. I think Schedule 3 is just fine. I think even safe banking might be moving along for the lame duck session, as Don Murphy talks about. I think Trump gives very little care about that, but he's a big supporter of states' rights. But
Well, John
I think.
Sullivan, did
Oh,
you
go
see
ahead.
that podcast that I did with John Sullivan from Cresco, their executive vice president of government relations? I did point out in the podcast and a couple of stories that they spend twice as much money as the second
Yeah, they do.
largest cannabis company when it comes to lobbying each and every month. So if you want to I just find that company, as far as the resource of information, that when we have them on, it's usually I don't want to say 100%. They have great information to share based on some of the people that they're speaking to, but there's a
if you
lot of
want, if you want to know how JD Vance and Trump are going to win over younger voters, it's going to be crypto. It's not going to be cannabis. JD Vance is hugely pro crypto. He's a tech VC background. Peter Thiel funded his entire Ohio Senate campaign. Peter Thiel also was a big backer of Trump the first time around. They probably got married via the guys behind the curtains. They are going to get loud on crypto regulation, and they're going to get loud on pro crypto regulation as it relates in America. That is going to be a huge cornerstone of their campaign. And to that end, I think they're not going to touch cannabis whatsoever. You're not even going to hear it.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with John, was that, there's a lot of talk going in Washington right now about Dems worried about losing the Senate, the House, and the White House. And does that bode well with Mitch McConnell retiring? And as Don Murphy has alluded a couple times, to get something, you have to give something. And there's some real truth behind all that. However, inaccurate for them to basically say, like, yes, this is going to happen during lame duck session, but things are going to develop, and those are kind of the people that, we plan to speak to leading up. But it's interesting that, Mitch McConnell and Steve Daines, who's been heavily endorsed by Donald Trump, that was another name to float around as far as Speaker of the House. And let's face it, if he was Speaker of the House, that would be huge for obviously this cannabis space. But a lot of things to factor in and consider. First off, this, if Donald Trump indeed does win the election, I think that's the most interesting thing leading up to November 5th.
Yeah, I almost want to scold myself for saying the word safe banking, because no one cares about that. It'll happen when it happens, and no one needs to worry about it or think about any of that.
Yeah.
On a much more important note, we have absolutely no reason to fear Schedule 3 going through properly. I mean, it's not done till it's done, but everything seems fine-ish. And we don't have any inkling that Trump would do anything to turn that over or derail it or whatever, it's possible for him to even do. No, he doesn't care. He's not against it. He's for states' rights for it.
Yeah.
Another thing though, again, I don't think Trump's going to mention it. He doesn't need to mention it. It's not a hot button for him. But we do have people behind the scenes that are talking to his team. Let me just say that. I've heard grapevine stuff that people are talking to Trump's team, and there's every reason to believe he's fine with things like Schedule 3 and not upsetting the apple cart for what's moving along. Kind of the same thing with JD Vance. So I don't want to say anything more than that. I'm not going to drop names because I don't want anybody saying Dan Ahrens said. But no, just rumor.
So incremental steps, as you've said all along, Anthony, but rescheduling is the first step in the right direction. But again, for some of our network that we've spoken to, this really enhances the chances of safe if rescheduling does happen. And I thought it interesting. Matt Hawkins from Entourage Effect Capital actually posted on LinkedIn last week that a lot of these anti-legalization groups, they're trying to delay the process. And I think accessibility to people of underage is at the forefront. And he released some really good, encouraging data out of Colorado that 10 years ago, when they basically legalized adult use cannabis within the state of Colorado, accessibility for people of underage is drastically reduced. So I think that was very interesting to say. And as we've had Congresswoman Nancy Mason a few times, Anthony, a lot of these rumors that people are spitting out right now are so inaccurate with the actual data. And it's promising, to say the least. When I hear stuff like that, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous when you hear from guys like Sam and Kevin Sabat that are saying, yeah, well, 16-year-old brains are harmed by cannabis use. It's like, yes, we all acknowledge that. It's 21 plus for a reason. No one here is saying we should be putting and selling cannabis to minors.
That's a good point.
These arguments are just moot.
Yeah.
Like it's not. There was a comment today that I was reading on the Federal Register that had something about cannabis use in minors detracts from cognitive ability as it relates to school. And it's like, yeah, if I gave him a bottle of whiskey, it'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, no one's sitting here saying that kids should be going to school stoned or using cannabis in general. It's not part of the conversation. They're making a conversation out of it, which is just completely pointless.
Dan,
in
here's
states that have limited licenses, just legal dispensaries, rather than decriminalization and shops opened up on every street corner like it's the Wild West, like New York in the past year. Legal dispensaries that are monitored and selling legal product to 21 plus, yes, definitely decreases on illegal use, and especially illegal use among minors. Simple as that.
I mean, speaking of New York, did you see that headline this morning that there's a recall of products because an unlicensed processor somehow sold products into the licensed market? That is almost like icing on the cake.
How does that happen?
That should never happen. That there's no, unless you're backdooring product or something, there is no way that you should ever get unlicensed product in a licensed dispensary. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. But hand it to New York. They're making new lows here daily.
One thing I'm learning along with this whole process, especially leading up to the election too, is that as much as we've grown and come a long way, like Eric Berlin on Friday was mentioning to us, like when he first started, studying like cannabis law 15 years ago and had to be careful with what he wrote and read about, and stuff like that related to even medical cannabis in Illinois. Then we'd fast forward 15 years later, and there's a state that just reported $1 million in revenue, in the first 6 months, which was quicker than 2024. But he did outline, like, as much as we're getting support from MSOs, he thinks that we drastically need to enhance just the messaging and support for this industry to get the narrative right when it comes to speaking to people in Washington. And I can't help but 100% agree when it comes to that, because when I look at a lot of the allegations that are being spewed out right now, I shake my head in disbelief that people actually believe this sort of stuff. But again, it goes to show that, yeah, this is our world, but it's a small bubble in the grand scheme of things. Right?
Yeah. The decades old messaging about drugs are bad and reefer madness are very ingrained in certain parts of society.
Mm-hmm.
And, we need more of, the CNN specials about, the people using cannabis for medical relief, and the oldies going from the retirement home on the bus to the dispensary, and all that good stuff. Yeah, that should be in the news more and more. And something else we've talked about, that rescheduling of cannabis can open the doors to real biotech and pharmaceuticals doing advanced work on the use of cannabinoids. And God, we need that messaging in Washington.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. It's great. I don't know if you listened to the Huberman podcast where he had the Canadian neuroscientist on. That was it was a masterclass in how cannabinoids interact with the body, and debunking as well as actually bring some things to light on cannabis. But I mean, there's no one in the States that can do that because we're not the research on the plant hasn't been conducted. Schedule 3 allows us to do that finally.
Got a lot of people on here liking the JD Vance. Big Mac, I think you're going a little far with this, but today's VP nomination by Trump, a huge hint as to Trump's marijuana policy moving forward.
It means zero. I mean,
you didn't pick him for that.
Man, these guys.
No. To be completely honest, I mean, if it means zero. Trump still has to get elected. And I mean, Biden's still running for now. The implications of this nomination to VP don't move the needle in any way. For the industry.
Hey, Jungle Java, good to see you. That podcast was awesome. 4 hours, and I plan on at least one more I plan on at least one more listen to it. But yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to listen to it yet. I know you said, Anthony, have a listen, but that was 4 hours long. Wow. But a good one, to say the least. But all right. So YOLO continues to perform well, my friend.
We are happy with it. And once again, I continue to believe that the best long-term opportunities are in the US and with the multi-state operators, and thus the fund MSOS. By the way, no one should be investing in MSOX unless they are experienced traders and read the prospectus and read the website and all that stuff, because it is liquid nitrogen. And yeah, I think people should own MSOS and YOLO. I think they need that diversification. I think, and the proof is in the pudding with the way prices have gone the last 6 months. So there you go.
This is
The
not
holdings are on the website every day. Everybody look.
This is
right there
not
for you.
This is not investment advice, just purely information,
True.
as we like to outline, right? All right, we got a big night. Things kick off in Milwaukee tonight, and will Trump be speaking tonight or no?
I think he's
so,
speaking.
but I don't know. Oh,
I think he is.
Thanks, Anthony.
I think they were saying that he was going to delay his speech 2 days. That was supposed to be today, and then maybe he's speaking tonight. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to be live streaming the RNC or anything.
Yeah.
So we'll
I
see.
will say that I had a lot of respect for President Biden as well, with after that happened, the way he conducted himself and spoke about it. But yeah, it was, like a lot of people have returned, like, where is this president that we've been like wanting to see for the past couple of years? But anyways, this is not a political show, but I don't know how you can't talk about politics with what's happened in the last 48 hours. But here we are on a Monday. But
if only the sector was fundamentally driven versus politically driven right now, we'd be having much different conversations.
Yeah, it's a good point, Anthony. Very good point. Dan, good to see you. And we'll check back in with you next Monday. But in the meantime, have yourself a great week, and tell Noah and Mackenzie we say hi, okay? Actually,
absolutely.
Any big guests on the Alpha Nooner this week that we should know about?
Me tomorrow.
Ooh,
Everybody
okay.
tune in tomorrow at noon. But now we publish the rest of the schedule. It's on our website, but frankly, I don't know who it is. Sorry, guys.
All right, my friend. Good stuff. And we'll see you next week, okay?
See you guys.
Thanks, right. All right, sir. I think that wraps up today. But we'll let people know that we did reach out to Congresswoman Nancy Mason, her team. So we're hoping to have her on. It's 10 of next week, but not confirmed yet. But we want to really get out through to some big name politicians. Don Murphy as well. He's on the floor at the RNC convention this week in Milwaukee. So we hope to have him on Wednesday or Friday this week, just to get a recap and what he's seeing and hearing in some of the conversations as he tries to push the narrative forward. As well, make sure to click on the QR code lower right-hand corner if you're a Jushi investor or interested in Jushi. It's our latest research report by Bill McNarland. So get a chance to log on to thedalesreport.com or click on this QR code and subscribe to our Baked In newsletter to have access to those full reports. AV, as I said last Friday, welcome back. Fresh new week, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yep. See everybody Wednesday.
See ya. Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.